we spoke about schooling. We've been hearing all thoughts since morning. A parent has their own vision on how they want to see a child grow. The school has a defined curriculum, how they want to take the learning journey forward. Now, all of these include a lot of thought process. So when you're talking about establishing standards, it does not limit itself to just curriculum, it does not limit itself to pedagogy or infrastructure, it encompasses all of these. So my first question to Dr. Neeta Bali is on innovation, because innovation is the key we are talking about to success these days. So as we are talking about raising children who are innovators and creators, Dr. Bali, in what ways can we encourage and support innovative practices? And specifically in early childhood, because these are children who are by nature very curious, they are by nature exploratory, and they are creating. So how do we convert this creativity into substantial innovation? That is my question to you.
Thank you so much. First, good afternoon, ladies, and very few gentlemen that are there. But anyways, at ECDF for having us here, Salwan School for hosting this event. It was so wonderful to hear this morning when I walked in, Dr. Kaul was talking about the early years being the most important, significant years. We all know that scientifically, I think the first 5 years of a child's life are instrumental in shaping the adulthood, are instrumental in shaping what the attitudes, abilities of an adult are going to be. It's all determined in the first 5 years. So by virtue of that, all of us know as educators that the first few years, the early childhood education is of prime significance. In fact, of far more significance, and requires a much greater degree of deliberation, as you very rightly said, a greater degree of deliberation, much better planning, and of course, very mindful execution. So, now I come to your question. You've spoken about innovation amongst very young students. First thing first, I think we all need to understand, as Dr. Kaul was talking this morning, about children feeling caged behind a window. We need to ensure that either figuratively or physically, children do not feel caged at all. I think that's the first step towards innovation. Allowing freedom to ask questions. A lot of us as educators, as parents, I think a lot of us get exasperated when children ask too many questions. But remember, asking questions is the beginning of innovation. Encouraging children to ask questions. Nurturing curiosity. In fact, prodding children to ask questions. Often when I speak to teachers, I tell them that there's something called provocation in a classroom. Provocation is very important in a classroom. When we say provocation, it means prodding children to think. If you prod children to think, they will ask questions. When they ask questions, they will look for solutions. Now here is the next thing. Make sure that you offer problems to children. When you offer problems, they will look for solutions. And innovation is essentially about finding solutions. We innovate because we want to find solutions. The other day when I was at a university speaking at an event, we were talking a great deal about design thinking. So when we talk about all that, I think the beginning of design thinking is finding solutions to problems. So giving children small problems to solve. When you give them problems to solve, they will innovate. It's inevitable that they will innovate. And they will discover something new. Something to feel excited about, something that they want to share with everybody else. So that's, I think, the beginning of innovation. Make sure that you have enough patience with young children. I think hats off to people who teach the early years. I think it requires that much more skill compared to the older children. Of course, I'm not undermining at all the skill and aptitude and attitude required for teaching the older children, but I think you require that much more patience and skill and abilities, refined abilities when you teach very young children. So as I said, allow children to ask questions and in fact prod them to ask questions, use provocation in a classroom, give them small problems to solve which will lead to innovation. Eventually, when you start small, you will ultimately start to begin to learn the real life skills. You know, and we call them 21st century skills. I think they're perennial skills. They've always existed. I think man has always tried people have always stumbled upon problems and found solutions. So they will inevitably learn the 21st century skills. It will lead to innovation. It will lead to discovering something new and excitement of sharing it with everyone else. And children are born curious, I think. When Dr. Kaul, I'm referring to Dr. Kaul again and again. I was sitting right next to the podium and listening very carefully to a lot of things that she said. She also spoke about free play. So when you give children freedom without any intervention, I think that's where real innovation or discovery will happen. Because there's nobody to restrict them or to inhibit them.
Absolutely.
So I hope that somewhat answers your question.
More or less, yes. And if I want to, add to that, I said, very rightly said, bringing down the barriers. So bringing down the barriers, and when we talk about bringing down the barriers, it's not just in the mind. That's the first step, yes. But when we talk about barriers, Tijay, I'll come to you on this. So when we talk about bringing down barriers, we are also talking about, when we're setting up, because all of you have been founders of schools. So we talk about classrooms without walls. And infrastructure plays a very important role. Now, each one of us, like Ma'am rightly said, first 5 years is about absorption. The children are maximum, they're all high energy, absorbing everything. And probably the rest of the life, they're just filtering out whatever they've absorbed and taking it through. So whether we are bringing down the barriers in the mind, opening their curiosity, or creating classrooms without walls. Now, infrastructure is very important in how we set up a school. Specifically, like if I think of an early childhood, like Dr. Kaul she gave us the window for today's conversation. So if there's a classroom, an early childhood classroom is full of chatter. Yes? So if I talk about infrastructure, how are the walls constructed? Because we do have a room. So is it a room that's going to absorb the sound or echo the sound? That's going to determine how the environment of the classroom is. So how important and what infrastructural points do we need to look at when we're setting up classrooms or even a school for an ambient early childhood setup?
A very warm good afternoon to all the beautiful ladies present here. I think who says India is a male-dominated country? It is not today. And so I think me and Mukul are the only two people sitting over here. So let's keep early childhood aside. Let's talk about infrastructure first. I feel infrastructure is the base of any school or education or any innovation or any development. We talk about any keyword. These are typical keywords: innovation, development, child psychology, mindfulness, all relevant words. But what kind of infrastructure is required? I'll take it on a different perspective. There are 40 students in a class. Most of our teachers available here. And out of those 40 students, first 10 are good students, right? Those are sitting in first benches, second benches, what I have seen in the classroom practically. Then another 10 students are averagely placed mid of the class. And rest 20 students are placed on the last benches or almost on the second last benches. What is the problem? Problem is those last 20 students, because when they pass through 12th class, their career is gonna shape up. They don't know which way to go. पहले 10 को तो रास्ता मिल ही जाएगा. They'll take 97%, 98%, 95%. ठीक है, we should aim for that. But what about those 20 students? I think infrastructure should be created for those 20 students. We talk about startup, we talk about Shark Tank. We see a new innovation, we are very happy. Wow, what an innovation. India में इतना भी हो रहा है. But we are never preparing our kids for that kind of innovation. Let me take you an example. I know one of our child in our K-12 school, which is about 40-50% kind of child. 45%, 46%, 47%. I can't make him a doctor. I can't make him an engineer. I can't tell him to go to a development company. I can't tell him to go to Microsoft, the big C's, anything like that. What I can do with him? Maybe I can make him a trained carpenter. Maybe I can make him a trained mason. Now I'm not denying the fact that हमारे country में क्या है, carpenter means a person who is making this table or chair. No, tomorrow if I can offer a program for a trained carpenter, he can become a startup which can put up trained carpenters into a system and can bring good quality work into the schools, into the colleges, into the education part. Same goes with the medicine, same goes with the electrician. Why don't we have programs for this? Why don't we have classroom for this? I remember my school has a super period. We are a 2000 student. Maybe now the infrastructure has changed. तो हमारे स्कूल में एक छोटा सा क्लास होता था जहाँ पे हमें इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बोर्ड बनाना बताया जाता था. पूरे साल में what we have learned to make 2 switches, 2 boards, bring 1 bulb from the house and you can light it up. This is what we have been told. Recently I was teaching history to my daughter and just 3-4 months back, so she was facing some problem. बोला बेटा हिस्ट्री तो सबसे आसान है, सब कुछ सिमिलर है, why you facing a problem with the history? So I went through her books. To my surprise, the books were similar what I have understood from 97-98. Even the front page was same. I'm telling you honestly, even the front page has not been seen. This is the level of education what we are talking about. Dr. Watson is talking about Finland system. We are very happy on Singapore, Finland system, talking about that. But why there is no innovation? And these, we may not change the curriculum. We can't change the CBSE books. We don't have any power. But at least we can make that kind of infrastructure in a school which can make a child practical, a child psychological, a child career friendly kind of infrastructure. Why don't we have influencer rooms? Why don't we have Instagram programs? Why can't we call influencers into our schools nowadays? That's a very good career. So I'll take it to that perspective, make some theories which are practical for those last 20 students, first 10 students to nikal hi jaye. Now talking about preschools, because we are talking about early childhood. So what early childhood needs? What a child needs actually when he or she is 2 years and comes to the school. He just needs our Montessori tools with the little visuals. No kind of electricity gadget, no VR. According to me, no AR is required at this stage. Thus their brain need to be trained what is happening with them and how they can adapt to the real life situation. That is what infrastructure is required at early childhood. But yes, once they pass the early childhood, the major responsibility comes from class 1. Wahan to entire system is different, right? So I think at infrastructure point, preschools needs just a practical thing, and while at K-12 school needs to be innovative, adaptive. We are talking about a no anger zone. Why don't we have smash rooms in our school? This is a common problem with now most of the kids nowadays. They come from home, mummy papa se gussa tha. Make a smash room in our school na. Let them take out their anger. But nobody thinks about it. So I think these kind of practical innovation need to be done with the infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is yes, very well and very rightly said. Because probably we kind of try to follow the established set path, and as you rightly said, yes, we need to create a culture of thought process, which again brings us back to the point of, you rightly said, curriculum cannot be changed. Yes, but what can enhance any curriculum is the pedagogy. Yes, so Mayuri, my question to you is pedagogy and curriculum. How can we experiment within these established framework of the curriculum to bring in innovative pedagogy so that we can create all, whether it's innovation or whether it is a child who is ready to experiment, explore and use their skill and not follow the established path, because we are talking about, even though Sir spoke about making engineers, but that engineer was all through anger management, through smash rooms. So there is so much, but how can we use curriculum and pedagogy to enhance this growth in the child?
Okay, very good afternoon. This is this gathering. We are all educationists. I am also one of you. There was a time when I used to sit there, and today I am here to tell you all about pedagogy. To start with, I think most of the school and every one of us are very well aware of NEP 2020. A good research work is done, and I'm lucky one to be part of the third tier team along with the scientists. I work for an organization known as Vigyana Bharati. We are around 35,000 scientists working together, and the final NEP was also drafted among those scientists as well. We all know that this time in our country, it is the first time scientists have developed education policy, which never happened before. the books even which are being drafted by NCERT. As sir, you were rightly saying, there was a time when social science book was that. This will be our sentence now because books have changed. Books have changed, and this year our kids are facing a lot of problem because of the non-availability of the books. NCERT is roaming around with a big stick that no one can copy those. There is right to that. Class 6 books have totally changed. The children are now actually adjusting themselves with the bridge course. There is a bridge course, the books are there. The schools are given, you can say, a strict circular that they cannot allow other vendors. They have to take NCERT books, and that's what our kids have to study. And if I talk about early education, we all know that when the child is conceived, the education starts at that very moment, but Indian mothers don't consider that. They think during that 9 months period, it is the food which we intake properly, the child will be beautiful. But actually the fact is this, that if we go to Western countries, the mothers there, they're very much concerned to how they're teaching the child. Because our epics told कि पेट में रहकर किसी ने कुछ सीख लिया, but कहाँ तक हम माँ ये सोचती है, ऐसा नहीं है. When I talk about the pedagogy, I would also say that if we talk about early childhood education and their pedagogy, there is no limit. There should not be a limit because their curiosity is too much. I run a program known as Space on Wheels, which is a bus which is having all the models prepared, been so long developed by ISRO. And I remember when I was conducting this program in Northeast, there was a school in Arunachal Pradesh wherein small children the principal said, "Ma'am, please allow the small children." We had put a restriction that from class 6 onwards will be allowed to go up. She was the one who requested me, "Ma'am, please, to chote bachcho ko chada dijiye." And there is why my opinion changed, that restriction. Why when we told those smaller children, they were 3 years, 4 years old, they were just getting up the steps. वो थोड़ी ऊंची थी, तो we were helping them. And the first thing a smallest child went up and said, "Oh my God, look at the face. You want us to become astronauts?" Just think of a 3-year-old in Arunachal. We consider that a backward place. Don't mind. Like I'm just saying about my experience. And that was what the child said. So there is no limit to education. If we're talking about Earth Day on 22nd of April, if we tell children ki kya karna hai, if we tell them ki matti mein jaakar khelo kudo, Indian parents will not like it. But if this is done there in Western countries, things will definitely change. When the child is born in 2 months, they just throw the child in the swimming pool. That's learning. So where I talk about early childhood education, there is no limit. We all know when we talk about infrastructure, how we are going to adopt or how we are going to arrange the environment for the teaching. We all know this, my dear teachers and everyone attached to early childhood education, that now even the concept of classroom has changed. There should be 6 bench seats for a child. There should be 3 beds for the child. The concept is the child can do anything, anytime. It won't be a 1 teacher, 20 students ratio. It won't be a 1 teacher, 10 students ratio even in nursery classes. Now there should be 1 teacher, 2 mother teachers, 1 ayah, because if there are students who are the good students, 20 of them sitting in front, the rest 20 can enjoy that time. If they want to sleep during school hours, that should be allowed. That is the instruction as per NEP. So the scenario has changed. Every day it won't be the same thing a child will learn and come out of the class now. Every child is going to do something new, and that is where innovation is. Creativity is. We are asked to now give students not to write ABCD, but to give them page to crumble it, to learn motor skills. Things have changed. So we as educators, this Don Bosco School, Malda, is my 20th school which I am establishing. I've been a principal of a CBSE Class 2 school in West Bengal for 28 long years. I stepped down after getting engaged with this organization where I'm a national coordinator. And plus I have been conducting Guinness World Record. I have 15 of them. So there is no end to anything. Every day we are also learning, as ma'am has rightly said, learn, relearn and unlearn. And we remember before pandemic, grandmothers were learning how to do this FaceTime calls through, you can say, desktop. But then the moment pandemic hit, all teachers, everyone started doing Zoom meetings and Google meetings and everything. So everywhere, I would say, people have come together. They are holding their hands to learn every moment so that we can face our AI intelligent children. The moment you say something, अच्छा वो Google में देखा था, रुको मम्मी मैं अभी बता रहा हूँ Google में क्या था. So it's like that. We have to be more faster, more better, and you can say more alert and good in front of children. So it's our homework should be done every day, and there is no homework for students for every day. That's the thing I can say to end up with your question, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, even though the areas we asked upon were quite varied, but everybody has circled around to the point of making children innovative. So, rightly said, even our Prime Minister has been saying this, that India has to become a nation of creators rather than job seekers. So while we are following this dream, and like you said, even a little child knows what an astronaut is, or crumpling a paper, I wouldn't call it as new innovations. I would call it going back to our basics, because that's how Indian education was always. We always learned from things around us, which today has acquired many scientific names. So I will not even go into those names, because that's how we all learned, and we're probably going back to that. So coming back to this, now there's always, like we spoke about, bringing in peace pedagogy. We spoke about taking away the cages of children. There is we're talking about skilling India, we're talking about creating children who find their ways and create new pathways. Every parent has a dream. Every parent is sending their child with a different dream. And the class, as Dr. Paul also rightly said, it's a diverse class. Today we are probably speaking only about diversity in the social structure. Very soon we'll look at linguistic diversity as well. So, a parent's vision, diversity, inclusiveness, accommodative schooling, all of this creates multiple challenges, but then there is a parent's vision, and then there is a school's design. We are all designed to create successful individuals. What success is redefines for each person. My question, and I will take views from each one of you on this, how do we start in the early years the idea of skill development? So where and what strategies can be? I'm talking about constructive, solid strategies on how we can do this. And since Tijay was quite critical about the way books haven't changed, I'll just add here also. See, history may not have changed, but our ways of teaching history should change, which is what ma'am emphasized on, and ma'am said that how we interpret that content also should change. So how do we use skill development from the early years so that when the child is out of school, the child is already what India envisions, a creator, not a job seeker? So I will take your views, and I'll start with you.
In fact, I would say that in a lot of our classrooms, we are trying to reinvent things that we've been doing for years. But we are now trying to reinvent and give them new nomenclature. And probably when we give it new nomenclature, it sounds that much more fancy, right? So when I say the Reggio Emilia approach, or I say, we recently introduced something called the IEYC, that's the early, International Early Years Curriculum. I was very keen to introduce that because I think that's the kind of curriculum that sort of reflects everything that we've been speaking about. So the other day I was attending something called the entry point. The IEYC has two very important points. One is the entry and the other is the exit point. It was very interesting to note in two different schools how they had envisaged the entry point. One school had created an experience, a real life experience for the children by creating an airport scenario, right? So on the airport scenario, there were children who were role-playing, different roles. There were young pilots, attired as pilots. They were air hostesses and stewards. They were travelers who were carrying strollers, had passports, and had boarding passes. So, you know, when you have very young children and you give them experiences through role play. I'm only giving one example because I'm sure the other panelists will also want to give very concrete suggestions rather than are generalizing or using very generic suggestions. So I think one great way of doing this, instilling skills at very young age, is to role play. When children are living out those roles, I think those roles, the ideas associated with those roles will stay with the children. So definitely when you talk about a pilot, children are going to be learning, what are the skills a pilot may require to navigate a plane. You're talking about, an air hostess, what are the skills that you need? Pleasant disposition, being hospitable, consideration for others. So you pick up skills at a very young age. I think you just pick up skills. And similarly in the other school, when they did the entry point, they had multiple roles. This was a particular airport scenario, so there were limited roles. But in the other school, I found that was very interesting. They had created a small hospital with nurses and doctors and patients who were acting out those roles. So when we say skills,